Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new Tier 8 Czech Premium Tank Destroyer, the ShPTK-TVP 100. Yes, it's called the ShPTK-TVP 100. Don't look up the actual name. We're going to call it the TVP 100 for most of this replay rate, most of this tank review, because it's easier than saying the rest of the name, to be honest. On the whole, initial thoughts for this tank destroyer. It is a very, very good tank destroyer. It's really fun to play. It's got a really good gun, fantastic aim time. It's got a really nice gun. It's got deadly HE rounds. Its DPM is absolutely fantastic. It's got no armor, but like I say, the camo on it is absolutely brilliant. Its only real problem as a tank destroyer is that as a Tier 8 tank destroyer goes, it plays the exact same role as a Panzerjäger NM116. And the NM116 is better than this tank, because that tank is only 1,000 gold more expensive, but it plays the same role, has better camo, very similar DPM, better shell velocity, that sort of thing, and slightly higher alpha. So generally that tank is better than this one, although, like I say, this is a very, very good tank, and the Panzerjäger is probably a little bit OP, to be perfectly honest. And yeah, so the buyer's beware is, if you've already picked up the Panzerjäger and you're looking at this tank, you'd basically be buying another Panzerjäger, but a tank that's just a bit worse than it, essentially. So if you're umming and ahhing over spending gold because you want to save for something else, and you already own the Panzerjäger, then don't really bother with this tank, because you can just wait for it to come on a bigger discount at some point in the coming months, like every other tank does, or wait for it to become an earn-up, like tanks end up being anyway in this game. So, yeah, that's the buyer's beware, essentially. I will say, if you own the Panzerjäger, there's no real point in spending the 9,000 gold on this tank, because just wait, essentially, because you're getting a very similar tank and a very similar playstyle. So, yeah, the TVP 100, it is, like I say, it is a very good tank destroyer. There is nothing wrong with it. It's an absolutely fantastic tank destroyer. If you like high, fast rate of fire tank destroyers with really good camo, you'll like this tank. And on the whole, apart from the whole Panzerjäger thing, it's very much worth picking up, because it is a very good tank destroyer, and it's got a lot of things that go really well for it. So let's get into the stats of the ShPTK-TVP 100. Like I say, ShPTK-TVP 100. There you go. That's the actual name. Look, it doesn't say anything about ShPTK or something like that. So, 700 horsepower on the engine, with 55 kilometers an hour top speed, 20 kilometers an hour reverse speed, and a 21.88 horsepower per ton ratio. This mobility is really good. It hits 55 kilometers an hour quite easily. It's a little bit slow off the get-go, but on the whole, it hits 55 kilometers an hour fine. 20 kilometers an hour reverse speed is also fantastic, so your mobility on the whole on this tank is really good, and it's a very nice feature for the tank. You've got a 15% fire chance, which genuinely feels higher than some of the tanks at 20%, because I've been set on fire in this tank quite a few times. Being shot in the rear, shot in the front, shot in the drive wheel. The only place I haven't been set on fire is being shot in the turret. And yeah, I've been set on fire quite a bit in this tank, which is a little bit annoying. The hit points of the tank is 1,150, which is about right for a Tier 8 premium, well, Tier 8 tank destroyer in general, especially one that forgoes armor for camo, so that's decent. 42 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed is pretty decent. It's pretty quick, but it does feel a little bit slow, because the TVP 100 is actually a pretty big tank, and it's a pretty long boy. So it's one of those that I think it's more perception than anything. It feels like it turns like a slug, but it actually turns pretty quickly, which is decent. You got 1.95 soft terrain resistance, 1.35 medium, and 1 on firm, which is not that bad for terrain resistances. It lets you hit that 55 kilometers an hour at top speed pretty decently. You got 317 meters of still concealment, and this is all basic. I actually think it's 320 if you don't have perma camo on it, but you're always going to put camo, even if you're paying like 30,000 silver for temporary camo on a tank destroyer that requires camo, because you always want that 3% extra camo. So 317 meters of still concealment with 362 on the move concealment. That's really good. You'll get that down to about 245, I think it is, with this setup you're going to see in a bit, which makes it really, really stealthy, which is nice. It's got 370 meters view range, which is fairly low, and you will need optics and situational awareness to make this view range get higher, and it is kind of annoying that it is that low, but at the same time, a lot of tanks that are similar to this do have that same view range, like the Panzerjäger does as well. So you can make it work, you just have to put optics and stuff like that on it. In terms of the turret rotation speed, it is a turreted tank destroyer, so it is a little bit slower than a lot of other tanks would be, but 32 degrees a second is actually pretty quick for a turreted tank destroyer. So 32 degrees a second on the turret traverse is fantastic for this kind of tank. So you'll take it. I mean, if you wanted to make it better and try and help it catch up to the track traverse, sure, you could run something like rapid aim, but I'm not sure you would, because you'll be trying to help the gun out a little bit and then also help out the camo. 0.82 on accuracy during the turret rotation is actually pretty good. It means that the turret doesn't, well, sorry, the gun doesn't bloom out that badly when you fully turn the turret, so that's great. 20 degrees of elevation and 6 degrees of gun depression, which is where a bit of the problem comes in for the ShPTK-TVP 100, because this is one thing that doesn't help it in terms of flexibility compared to the Panzerjäger, for example, because the Panzerjäger's 8 or 10, one of the two, and that means that on a ridgeline it's fantastic. Add to that the Panzerjäger is also a smaller tank, so it doesn't expose itself near as much. 6 degrees of gun depression on this tank, which is actually really quite tall, because it is a TVP or a Skoda T50 hull. It's a pretty tall tank, so 6 degrees of gun depression is not that nice. Although it's not 5, it's not 4, it's not 3. You can still use it decently, and I mean, a lot of the time you're going to be in less aggressive positions. You're going to be in more positions where you've got a field of fire rather than having to use your gun depression, so it's not that bad, but at the same time, it's not great, which is one of the reasons why I always say, which is why I'll say the Panzerjäger is way more worth picking up than this tank, and if you own the Panzerjäger, not quite as much worth picking up. It does have a 5.8 base reload, which is ridiculously quick, and it's got a 0.32 accuracy, which is fantastic. Now, the real king of this tank, which is better than a lot of tanks, especially like the Panzerjäger, 1.3 second aim time. The 1.3 second aim time on this tank is utterly insane. I think that's actually one of the best aim times in the game. It's incredible. The gun is, it just goes, you can see the circle go, and you're ready to shoot. So fast. The aim time is incredible, and I will tell you that. It's just fantastic. That is an absolutely fantastic thing about this tank, is that aim time. So you got a 2.5k base DPM, which I think with the full crew skills and all that is up to 3.5k. Which is insane. Like I said, the DPM is an absolute plus point for this tank. It's so quick. You've got 270 base pen, which is also phenomenal, with 330 on the heat rounds, which again, absolutely phenomenal. 100 pen on the HE rounds, which is great. This for 420 alpha, when penning lightly armored, for going for lightly armored targets like light tanks and stuff like that, and lightly armored TDs, you will do so much damage hitting these HE rounds. It is such an asset for the tank. You've just got to know and load them for whatever tank you're going to come against. So, yeah, these HE rounds are fantastic. The penetration on these two rounds is absolutely fantastic. Like I say, you've got AP and heat. It's a real big plus point for the tank. Like I say, it's very similar to the Panzerjäger. You see why it is very, very similar to Panzerjäger. This gets up to 3.5. I think the Panzerjäger is about 3.4k DPM, something like that. And it's very similar. The one thing where it falls down, though, compared to the Panzerjäger, again, shell velocity. While the Panzerjäger gets an AP round with like 1200 shell velocity, this is an AP round with only 900, which is a little slow. It means you have to really lead your targets, so just bear that in mind when you're firing at distance. And 795 heat velocity as well is also pretty damn slow. So, yeah, just make sure that when you're using these rounds that you do lead your targets effectively and correctly. Otherwise, you're just going to miss shells, and you've got to be very wary of that. 900 on the HE as well is pretty nice. You got 150 silver bonus as well. By the way, if you look at the silver made in these replays that you're going to see in a bit, they are very high, and that's because there's actually an op at the minute which gives you 1.5 times silver as well as 1.25 on top of the season pass bonus as well. So there's a lot of silver to be made at the minute, so don't quite trust what the silver says at the end of the replays. But yeah, that's the stats of the TVP 100. Let's go have a look at the commander skills that we assigned for this tank. So I have been hiding it in the TVP VTU, which that's not what we're looking for, game. So we have been hiding it here. That's the Kramvon again. What is it doing? Game. Let me pick my TVP 100 crew. That is not okay. You know what? We're just going to have to go old school and use the actual filters here. So there we go. TVP VTU. Let's go to the commander vehicle assignment into there. There we go. So in terms of a crew on this tank, I run. What is going on with this? That is so weird that it is doing this. So in terms of a crew on this tank, I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Steady Aim, Run and Gun, Camouflage Expertise, Silent Driving, and Muffled Shot. The same as what I'd probably run on the Panzerjäger. All these perks to make the camo on this tank are utterly fantastic. Great camo with 10% extra. 55% decrease in its on the move camo, which is something you want to be able to move stealthily between positions. And the ability to decrease your camo while firing by 35%. In terms of steady aim and run and gun, you want to run these to make gun 10% more accurate. And I mean, you could... And then, at the end of the day, this is the tank destroyer. So you can take run and gun and make your tank 10% more accurate or firing on the move. I like to do that because I will take a lot of shots on the move and stuff like that while trying to move positions. And I just take a lot of chancy shots in general. But if you wanted to, you could quite easily take snapshot instead to make the accuracy 12% better on turret traverse. But like I say, the turret traverse rotation is also already pretty damn good on this tank. So that's the crew that I run on this tank. Let's look at the equipment. I run rammer, camo net, and optics. Exactly the same as what I run on the Panzerjäger again. And obviously food. Now, I mean, if you wanted to, you could run a traction system to get yourself up to 60 kilometers an hour, make it a bit quicker. That's up to you. Or you could run something like an advanced reload. I'm not sure what you'd drop out for that. But you'd run that because the HE rounds are so good and you might want to, you know, exploit those. So let's have a quick look at the stats of the tank with this crew and equipment in. So as you can see with the equipment in it, we have got ourselves some better terrain resistances at 1.8, 1.24 and 0.92. Our view range is actually 473.83 with this, which is nice. That's fine. We'll spot a lot of the tank. We'll definitely outspot a lot of tanks, which is great. You got 245 still concealment, which again is absolutely fantastic, and 262 on the move concealment, which is fantastic with the silent driving. That really, really helps a lot. Makes you a little bit more like a light tank in terms of that on the move camo. Your traverse speed on your turret goes up to 34.75, just a little bit better because of Born Leader. The accuracy during rotation goes down from 0.82, was it, or 0.8 to 0.72. Your reload is down to 4.23, which gets even better if you boost with food, remember, which gives you a 3,545 DPM, which is insane. 0.26 accuracy, which is great. A 1.2 aim times instead of 1.3. Yeah, this tank gets pretty nutty in terms of that rate of fire and that gun handling with this setup, and it's really, really nice for that. But like I say, those stats are fantastic for this tank, and that's what you get with that setup. But I will compare it a little bit to the Panzerjäger, because obviously the Panzerjäger has 8 less pen on its premium, on its standard, sorry, 10 less pen on its premium. It goes 6 kilometers an hour faster, and as you can see with this steel concealment here, it's actually 212 as opposed to 245. This is with the exact same crew in the tank and the same setup. And I mean, yeah, the DPM's 100 less on this tank than it is on the TVP-100. As you can see, it reloads 0.5 second slower, but it has 280 alpha instead of 250, so it's ever so slightly better. Obviously, the accuracy is ever so slightly worse, and the aim time is still 1.84, which is fantastic, but it is worse than the TVP-100. But make up for that with the ammo speed of 1,275, which is fantastic velocity. And you've got great terrain resistances added up with the same power to weight and that better top speed. This is why I say, oh yeah, and the same view range as well, which is why I say that the TVP-100 or the ShPTK-TVP-100 is basically the Panzerjäger, but ever so slightly worse. I still, like I say, they are both absolutely fantastic. This probably is a little bit OP. It's too early to say yet for the TVP-100, but it is a fantastic Tier 8 tank destroyer that is, yeah, I think it's perfectly worth picking up. But if you own the Panzerjäger, you're probably best to just hold off, wait and see if it comes up in an earn-up at some point, or if it gets a bigger discount in a couple of months like happens with most tanks, and then you can pick it up for probably like 6k gold instead of 9,000. But on the whole, like I say, I think it is a fantastic little tank destroyer. I really like it. It's really damn good. And yeah, so I'm going to send you over to the replays, and so you can watch what it can do for yourself and make your own mind up on it. So as always, everybody, I'll see you in the replays. So here we are on the replays with the ShPTK-TVP 100, and I've got 3 replays for you in this video. This is the first game, which is more of the average game that I've had in the tank, where I've not been one-shot by artillery. That's also happened, or set on fire in the first shot and burnt out. Yeah, this is more of the average game that I've had in the tank. The second replay will be in a tier 10 game, and the third replay will be the Ace Tanker replay for the tank. And this first game, we're on Pearl River, and on Pearl River, I'm thinking, you know, I could go down the 1-2, which is somewhere I like to go in tanks that have this sort of faster rate of fire or just good camo, because I can go use the bushes, go use the rocks at like HJ2, sort of peek-a-boom and get shots out, but I prefer actually, to be honest, I prefer having a higher alpha to do that. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to try and go to the middle of the map so I can try and, you know, shoot people in their base and try and use my good DPM. And as we come up here, we are the only one that's come up here, which is kind of awkward. The T-54 has come up with us, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is not going to go too well for me. While I have incredible DPM, in a knife fight with another tank, especially a tier 9 medium like the T-54, it's not going to go too well for me, and he will rip me to shreds. And we don't want to get into that sort of fight. So what I've done is sort of run away, the roundabout way of doing it. So we've come all the way around the rock. Fortunately, we managed to catch a nice shot into that T-54 as we're flanking and running away. And that's what I was kind of hoping to do. I was hoping to get a sneaky shot into that guy and also run into this dip here. Because this dip here, he might have to attack me. And if he does, he's going to have a bad time, because we've got lots of people at F1, 2 that can actually shoot this position we're in. But this Ragnarok T-34-100 actually is going in on him. So it's like, well, okay, I may as well go for this guy. The T-34-100 is actually shooting at him. The T-54 is actually looking at me, but fortunately enough, I bounced a shot. I think that was from him. 490, that might have actually been from something like one of the artilleries firing an AP shell. I'm not quite sure what bounced off me there. That was weird. It's like it came out of their base, or maybe from their sniper hill at J6. Maybe they had a shot at me. I don't know. Weird angles for shots here. But we fortunately bounced a shot, which never really happens. And right here, count the shots. He fires 2. I'm pretty sure the T-54-2 has already fired 1 shot. So I'm like, okay, this autoloader has fired his shells. This is where I have DPM, and this shows the lethality of this DPM. Because look at this guy. He's reloading for like 26 seconds. Well, that's all of his hit points to me. He's trying to ram us to get a little bit of hit points off of us. And in the blink of an eye, he's gone. Fortunately, a nice U-152K got to shoot him, but before he would have managed to get... He probably would have got 1 shell into us there for his whole health. That's just how quickly you can rip a tank to shreds with this DPM. It is so filthy how fast it fires. And yeah, if you catch someone out by surprise, and you know you can take a hit from them or 2, and you can deal their whole hit points pretty easily, you will do it. So now that the threat in the middle has gone, we're not really being attacked by anyone, although there is actually a light tank coming up, and it's like, hang on a minute, that's a light tank. Well, I'll load HE then, because HE against light tanks is deadly. Maybe not as much against an LTTB, because it's got armour, so we do have to make sure we hit where we aim, but we get a nice shot into the back of his turret for 432, and we reloaded again in 4 seconds for 392. That's just how blistering this rate of fire is, and how fast you can rip someone to shreds that are lightly armoured with HE. Like I say, the HE is fantastic on this tank, and if you get to a good place to use it, you can have a good time. So try and pop a shot there at the MX-30. I'm not sure how or where that shot missed, because that looked like it went dead centre of the reticle, and the MX-30 was in the dead centre of it, so even though he got unspotted, that shot looked like it should have hit. But hey-ho, unfortunately we didn't get the damage on it, but we are up to 2.7k damage so far with 2 kills. And this position on Pearl River is one of those where you've just got to keep trying to change your positioning to try and find shots where they pop up. This defender does get spotted in their base, so I'm like, you know what, I'll fire quick enough. I'm just going to destroy the cover that's in front of him, and that way I can get that 1 shell in to finish him off. And we get to shut the defender off, thankfully. So now I'm looking at the map going, right, where do I want to try and poke to get a shot? Well, I'm going to try and see if I can get a shot here at the MX-30 and that M4 Revelry, say that we're somewhere over there. See if they pull back into position, I can shoot them. Because obviously this middle area on Pearl River is really nice for this. You can get good shots across most of the map. And unfortunately, the MX-30 gets shut... Well, fortunately for our team, they get shut down by our team. But unfortunately for me, I don't get any damage on him. So we're just looking again. Where's the next person we can shoot? Well, the Yag Tiger 88 just gets shut down. It's like, well, I can get a shot at the 257 under the bridge like we did at the Yag 88 earlier on. And just as we get here, it's like, oh, I can see it. I can't quite see him. Damn. That was really unlucky with where we actually had shots at that 257. Unfortunately, we couldn't actually get a shot at him. And so, yeah, we couldn't get any more damage. But then as we turn around, it's like, hey, that's a Mutz. There's another medium tank in the middle of the map. Well, he's on 832 hit points. He has more hit points than me, but I can by far out DPM him. I can rip him to shreds if I catch him off guard. And here we go, one shot in. And it's like he hasn't even had time to react just as... Well, he reacts just as we get the second shell in. And we would have killed that guy easily, but he gets shut down by the Scorpion. And that puts us at 3.4k damage so far. And there's only 2 tanks left. There's the Revelry saying they're Iron Rain over there. But our team is marauding towards them. So the likelihood of me getting any more damage on those guys is fairly low. But we're always going to try and get there. And try and use the mobility of the tank. You see, you know, we're going over flat. We're going at 50. We're getting up to that 55 kilometers an hour quite easily. This is, you know, this is where the mobility can be quite nice for the tank to be able to get to a position to get flanking shots at people and or just try and mop up at the end of the game. And that fast rate of fire and the pretty decent mobility does help you to actually mop up with extra damage at the end of the game and get there to get shots and stuff like that. So we finished that game with the victory, 3 kills, 3.5k damage, the second class, 1564 base XP, a pretty decent game for the ShPTK-TVP 100. And yeah, we used that middle of the map quite nicely. I really, what I liked about our replay was it just shows you how lethal the DPM is. When you catch people out, just like the Panzerjäger, you just rip them to shreds before they can blink. And, you know, they're dead. And like you saw with the LTTB as well, if you find out you can shoot at lightly armoured targets, say you're shooting at like a Grilla that we're seeing in front of us there, or like an SU-130PM, or a Borsig, or any other light tank, really, you switch to those HE rounds with 100 pen, which is great for any light, you know, to be able to shoot any lightly armoured targets. You can be hitting them for 420, and, you know, hitting them for about 400 generally, because that's what I've been rolling for, with a 4-second reload is absolutely dirty, and, you know, people's hit points will evaporate very, very fast. So we're in the second replay. On this second replay, we're on highway, and we're against tier 10s. This Inferno is pushing really weirdly aggressively in towards me under this bridge. I'm looking at this guy going, if I was to do this, I would be dead by now. This guy is actually surviving so far. We're trying to track him, but unfortunately, he gets to us in a state where he is a one-shot, but he manages to actually get to us to get a shot into us, which is kind of sad. We do lose that 400-odd hit points, but he gets shut down. Like I said, normally before I got anywhere near where that Inferno was, I'd be dead. I'd have been shot to pieces, but it is what it is. And yeah, I'm using this position under the bridge on highway and making this push on highway because this is such a good spot. Well, it's just such a good push to make because you can generally try and cut off their ridgeline and people going to town and stuff like that. You can usually get a good amount of spotting and a good amount of damage. We get a nice shot into the drive wheel there of the TNH VZ51. He's actually tracked up in the air, so we get another shot into his drive wheel. I'm thinking, oh, if this guy doesn't repair, I've got him. But fortunately for him, he does still have his repair kit, so he repairs it. Now, normally, if I was, say, in a platoon and someone had, you know, if we, like, I like Tank's been at E2 for most of the game so far, and he's only just moving into the middle. If I was in a platoon with someone that I knew was going to be, say if I was in a platoon with Turkey, for example, I know he's a light tank, he'd go running and spotting things, I would probably be more likely to be sat where the E4 position is, you know, where that TD is there, because from there I'd be able to get good shots at anyone on these ridge lines, anyone that overexposes. I'd be getting good shots at this chisel without being looked at, and it'd be definitely a better position to be in for a tank destroyer that relies a lot on its camo and just not being spotted. And as you see, we are far too close to the enemy team at the minute, which means that we can't really use our camo effectively because they can just spot us easily because, you know, we're only like, what, 150, 200 metres away from them. So, realistically, I would normally take up E4 instead around those buildings and bushes because I can get the same shots, but I would rather be spotting for myself and making sure that I'm pushing the tempo so that we're not all sitting in the same place. Because, like I say, a lot of our team at the minute is in the similar... It's basically in the same place back there on that 4 line. And if you have everyone sit there, it's not going to go very well because you're going to have no one spotting and they're just going to sit on the ridge lines and the game will pass us all by, which is not what I want to do. So we get a nice shot into the Panzer 58 Mutz there that tried to just poke over and shoot us. And we're just trying to keep spotting anything on the ridgeline and trying to get shots ourselves. Now, naturally, this is also where having 370 meters view range doesn't help us as much. Because if there is a tank up there that is actually really lightly armoured as well, or like really good camo, I should say, not lightly armoured, really good camo, we might still struggle to see it because we don't quite have that really high view range. But at this sort of distance, actually, to be fair, with 473 meters view range, we should be doing all right. But this is where I decided to change up the angle of attack. You can see where our mediums are at A, B, 6. And I was thinking, you know what, if they're over there and there's a medium tank at A8, I can't push up to the ridge line that was in front of me because that medium at A8 will wreck my face, and I don't want that. So what we're going to do is change up the angle of attack and get over here to this part of the ridge line because I can stay safe, I can pull back, and hopefully the guys behind me will shoot anything that might want to come over from directly in front of me. But I can also try and get shots at this TNH VZ51, the light tank, and possibly these medium tanks over in the distance over here. So we try and get a shot at the Panzer 58 Mutz there, but unfortunately the shot just deviates, which is kind of sad. The second shot also goes over his head, but it wasn't fully aimed because we're having to take a chancy shot because we keep being looked at. But there, the TNH VZ51 poked over to try and shoot us, and he ended up losing a lot of his health to the guys behind me. The Leopard 1 now comes over to try and shoot me, and once again, the bait is kind of working because he is not being able to get shots at me, and he loses all of his hit points. And we retract him in place, which was nice as well. We end up spotting the Turan there as well, which is decent, which means he gets tagged up a little bit. But now they are being more hesitant to poke over to get shots at us, which means that I can actually get shots over here. Now, I was thinking of loading a HE round before, but I decided not to in case I actually had a shot at the T-54 and the T-54 poked up because I did want to shoot him as well. But he didn't really poke enough for me to shoot him, and we managed to shut down the Iron Rain. We're up to 2.7k damage with 1,822 assistance so far. And that's the thing with this tank, the same as the Panzerjäger, having such good penetration. 270 standard pen means that we're going to deal with everything we're going to face. We're going to be able to pen everything we want to. And with the 330 heat pen as well, that's utterly dirty. And that means we'll be able to just go through things really easily. It's like if we had an E100 sitting in front of us, we're able to go through the E100's turret face, which is great. So right now, yeah, I'm trying to find a shot somewhere else. The SU-130 pokes up a little bit enough to be able to get the shot into his turret there. That's where maybe an ammo swapper might be nice, because I could have just switched to HE and hit him for 400 instead of 250. But again, I like the camo. And yeah, we whittled him down a little bit. Now the E100 is making a push, and I'm thinking, okay, I've just got a shot into his ass, and I'm thinking, right, okay, I want to kind of track him. I want to track him so that, you know, we can keep farming more shots into him. Unfortunately, the first shot actually only does track damage. I was kind of hoping he may have orange tracks and I might be able to just take them off. But that doesn't quite happen, and he manages to get away, which is why we went for the damage in the end, because it realised I wasn't going to be able to track him. But now he's gone beyond our sight. It's like, okay, I'm going to try and get a shot into this TNH, make it so possibly he's a one-shot for us. We get a nice shot into him, and the SU wasn't looking at us, but he managed to swivel in time to get the shot, that big shot into us, which is kind of sad for us, because that means we are a one-shot for everything now. But I'm watching this E100. I try and pop a shot at the wall, because I thought maybe that was one of the destructible walls down there, because there is one of those. And thankfully, the E100 drives straight out into the open, and we managed to shut down that tier 10 heavy tank. Now the Waffle E100 is driving out. I'm like, okay, load HE, because I can shut him down in one shot. And we managed to get the shot in to shut down the Waffle E100 in one shot there. I got detected, so I thought maybe that was the Tortoise there looking at me. But the Tortoise didn't quite have a shot at me. That T-54 is actually still in that position at A9 and has not been hurt yet, because that is a very good counter position for our push. And I am just being wary now, because if that Tortoise decides to just drive out, he will have fairly easy shots on my side and he will shut me down in one shot. I don't really want that myself. And now we're poking over to see if we can get a shot at this T-54. But unfortunately, again, he's just pulled back behind the original. We can't quite get a shot at him. And this guy, by sitting there, may not have had the best of games himself, but he's completely cut off our TDs, or medium tanks, sorry, at A7. He's spotted them all consistently, and that's meant that, you know, they can get shot by the guys that are safe from me. And by being focused by one or two people when you're actually looking over, and, you know, they're looking at you going, oh, a tank, it's kept me from being able to keep hindering them. So now we get over and get a shot into the TNH VZ51, managed to shut him down, And at this point, I'm thinking, right, okay, if I can get rid of these TDs, great. The light tank's gone in to distract the Tyran. I get a nice HE shell into the SU-130PM there. Unfortunately, I end up hitting the gun of the SU-130PM, which is really annoying, but we do manage to shut him down. Now I'm looking at the Tyran, like, okay, I'm going to get a shot into this Tyran and pen him, but unfortunately, even though he's got no armor, the 100mm of HE pen doesn't go in, and it's like, oh, God. My friends have all just died. Oh no, the Tyran's coming for me, and we missed the shot on the move, and unfortunately for me, the Tyran just goes, goodbye, because it's a Tyran. And unfortunately, that game went from looking like it was very winnable to a loss in a very, very short space of time. And unfortunately, we lost the game, but did come top in the MVP screen on a loss, which is pretty good. Finished the game with the 1543 base XP on a loss, which was a second class, 5 kills, 4.9k damage, and 2,000 assistance, which is a really great game for a tier 8 tank destroyer and a tier 10 game. Showed you how good the DPM is. It showed you the fact that it has no trouble penning anything, and just again, when you're firing at those lightly armored targets, just how lethal those HE shells can be. And unfortunately, yeah, you can't win every game, can you? That's the way it is. But we're on to the third and final replay. The best replay of the video. Well, actually, to be honest, I think the last replay was actually the best game I've had in the tank, which was unfortunately a loss. But this is the Ace Tanker replay for the tank. And we're on Lakeville, and I'm thinking, okay, Lakeville, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the Lake Road, and by the Lake Road, hopefully be able to shoot things that these light tanks that are going down there spot on the beeline. And hopefully we'll get some nice shots, and, you know, positions like this where you can try and get shots at people that are crossing onto flanks and stuff are really good for a tank like this, because you can just eviscerate people with your DPM. Now, unfortunately, we end up getting spotted as we fire that KV-4 there, and that's just because our tank was sticking a bit more to the right, which meant that we were actually sort of around the corner where the tank destroyers were poking around on the 4 line, which meant that they spotted us up, which is kind of sad, because otherwise we would have had a very good free farm there on the KV-4. And that's just because this tank is a wide boy. Like I say, for a tank destroyer with no armor and really, really good camouflage, it's really weird because this tank is really fat. It's quite tall and it's a really big target. If you do get spotted, you're a very easy tank to hit. But it is what it is. We go for the shot on the KV-4 there, 270 pen. I was kind of hoping to go straight through his turret front. And unfortunately, we bounced both shots. We ended up ricocheting just off his turret front again there. And we try and get a shot snapped into the Falcon T92. Just trying to see if we can get a shot again into the KV-4 there. We've just noticed that there was a SU-130PM moving into the position at E4. And I'm looking at it right, like lunch, really. I'm looking at the SU-130PM thinking, you know what, I can load HE and go after this guy. But for now, I want to keep trying to put shots into this KV-4. But now the KV-4's run away, I was thinking the Tortoise had actually run all the way around as well. So it's like, okay, load HE, go after the SU-130PM. He might be able to put one shot into me for 520, but I'll be able to put multiple shots into him for the 420 of my HE. But thankfully for me, actually, he'd lost a lot of hit points by that point, and we actually fortunately get missed there by both the K91 version 2 and the Falcon. We try and get a shot into the Falcon T92 there, but only do track damage. But the second shot actually goes in and damages his engine. I actually think tracked him in the end as well, which means he's had to use his repair kit. But most importantly, for the most part, he'd actually lost a lot of his momentum, which meant that he took another hit or two there. So now we're looking for shots at this K91 version 2, because the K91 version 2 is actually in an awkward spot for me, because once he's gone, I can progress quite easily along the 4 line, and know that I'm not going to have any repercussions from pushing by getting shot from tanks over there. But with him there, it's kind of awkward, but he's also covered himself from a heavy tank, so I load heat because of the Tortoise. And the reason is because I can go straight through that machine gun port on the Tortoise. Now we get a nice shot through his machine gun port and a second one, but naturally we're taking on one of the highest DPM tanks in the game, which is a mistake. We have really high DPM, sure, but he has better DPM. And yeah, that's definitely a mistake to do that. But that's why I like the heat on this tank, because for stuff like that, sure, I could have gone and shot his cupola, but I didn't really have to think about the cupola. I could just go straight to the machine gun port on his left with that heat round. We get a nice shot into the Falcon as he's crossing as well. And yeah, we're in the predicament now where we're a 1-shot for a few tanks and a 2-shot for others. And we don't have those hit points to play with anymore because we made a stupid poke against the Tortoise, which was really dumb. And also the other thing that he ended up doing to us was damaging our ammo rack after we'd already used a repair kit, which is really sad. Because now we're having to have a high DPM tank have a broken ammo rack, which means that its 1 strength is, or its one of its 2 strengths, really, is completely nullified. But we get a nice shot into the back of the K91 version 2, and I'm just looking at it going, come on, K91. Just pull up enough to give me another shot. But he ends up getting shut down by the 257 in the town. Our repair kit comes back, which is great. And I'm thinking, you know what, actually, now is the time. I want to poke around this corner and try and spot up the things on the corner, because no doubt they've pulled back to about B3, behind that little ridge. I can try and spot them up, and hopefully my team will be able to get shots at them. Now, fortunately, we end up bouncing the Falcon T92 there, but we could have taken the hit easily from him, and we get to shut down their light tank, which is great. That means their vision's gone. And hopefully our heavy tanks will now be able to progress without getting absolutely ripped to shreds by the TD that's sat at B3, and anything else that possibly is there. So poke around the corner with caution in case the Tortoise is there. We get very fortunate that Batchat 15555 misses us there with his shot. It would have been very fortunate for him to just snap the shot at us there, but the shot literally just whizzed over our head, which was, yeah, kind of fortunate he missed. We'll take it. We'll try and get a blind shot at the Batchat, because I was thinking maybe he could poke out into that bush without ever getting spotted, but he doesn't. We actually end up spotting him. So now it's a waiting game. I don't want to poke around the corner and attack the heavy tank that's at B2. And this Batchat 15555 is actually in a platoon with the Tortoise as well, so I'm expecting the Tortoise to be on that corner. And there we go, he gets spotted, and he is. So I'm just waiting for this 15555 to actually poke out, because I don't want to go forward, and then he just pokes out and blaps us anyway. So someone fires at him, which I'm thinking maybe that'll force him out, and it does. So we get a nice 418 roll shell into him, and as he's trying to get the gun depression to shoot someone, we managed to shut down that guy. And I say, just how fast this rate of fire is. 3.9 seconds with a food boost is so dirty for 250 alpha. It's just lovely. And having that HE round as well for lightly armoured tanks like the Batchat 15555 is wonderful. So I'm looking at this Chrysler right now, and I'm thinking, well, I could go through him with 270 pen, but I could also load heat and possibly go through his upper plate. And the Tortoise being here as well, again, makes me think I could load heat and go through his machine gun port if I want to. So we try and go straight through the Chrysler, but unfortunately it doesn't quite work out. Aim for his lower plate this time, and unfortunately he ends up getting shut down. But the Tortoise has just fired, so I'm like, okay, I get the chance. I've got the chance to fire, and we take that opportunity to get the shot into his cupola. He fires again, and, yep, make sure that the shot goes straight through the cupola of that Tortoise. As soon as he fired, we'd have to take the chance to go take him. We can't just sit there cowering because he's fast-firing gun. We have to take the opportunity to shoot and kill that guy. Now we've got behind the last 2 tanks. We've got this WZ 11114 shooting at us, and we know that we can start pummeling shots in because he's just shot the T44. We know we can probably get one more shot in before he reloads, but unfortunately our friendly tank manages to block the shot there, the 257, and then we get extremely lucky that we only get tracked by that 11114, but with our blistering rate of fire, we managed to get the shot in to finish him off. And finish the game with 4.4k damage, 1712 assistance, the victory, 5 kills, 2.3k base XP, which is a really great game. Like I say, lots of silver because there's a silver up on at the minute. Ace tanker. Yeah, the 2,352 base XP. A really great game for the TVP and Ace tanker. It is a fantastic tank. And like I say, if you already have the Panzerjäger, it's probably not worth picking up for you unless you are like a tank collector. Because the Panzerjäger is pretty much very, very similar to this tank. It's probably just that little bit better because of the gun depression and shell velocity. But that doesn't mean this tank is bad. And if you don't have the Panzerjäger, this tank is probably well worth picking up. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.